we are organisations that are centred around community work, community development, education and social well-being. In terms of Schools of Unified Learning, it's a cultural arts foundation using the disciplines of unified knowledge, which is about bringing art and science and mathematics together through things like drama and dance. Teaching mathematics in this way is enriching, but also broader life development around the theme of Pan-African culture. In terms of the Abundance Centre, Schools of Unified Learning formed the Abundance Centre with a cooperative of members in terms of other community organisations and others interested in community development. This Abundance Centre is based at 186 Peckham High Street, where we are now. You're very welcome. Ashima to you, respect. Thank you for interviewing us.
Tender for that. Briefly, if you can then explain what happened at the courts yesterday, and more importantly, why you were there.
Okay. Well, yesterday we attended Lambeth County Court, and the matter we were there to discuss or to propose was an extension of time at our Abundance Centre. It seems that our local council would like to have us leave the space that we have been resident in for over a decade. So before I explain what happened in the case, let me give a background as to how we've been here. It's a lengthy story, but obviously I'm going to make it concise for you. And thank you again for your interest. The community support is the key to how this is resolved, and it is important that we do stand on these principles. So, over a decade, Schools of Unified Learning have been based here, working from this space, doing community work alongside other organisations. In 2009, a key associate member of this space left the space, and that allowed an opportunity for us to transform it into what we have now set up as the Abundance Centre. The Abundance Centre is set upon principles of Pan-Africa, set upon principles of cooperative working and social cohesion. Pan-Africa means unity across Africa, African unity. And in the context of being in Britain, it obviously means social well-being, social cohesion amongst all peoples. So we set our space to do this work and have a platform for organisations to meet, for community to take on different kinds of learning, to support families with children who may have special learning requirements or preferences for more independent, culturally sensitive ways to learn. So we've created a space like this. From the beginning, from we started this in 2009, we made presentations to all key stakeholders in the area. By stakeholders, I mean other local organisations and importantly the local council, to let them know what it is we are establishing. It is something quite unique in the area. There are many centres that work for our community, but in terms of Pan-Africa, really trying to connect people of different African heritage in a space, this is something that is not often tackled, and we've really sought to do that. And we've been successful with it. So we have a diversity of people here, from the Somali community, the Nigerian community, various parts of the Caribbean, people across different religious points of view and political points of view are able to work in this space. So from 2009 we established the centre and proposed the full development of it to our members, but also to local stakeholders like the council. From that point we've had no support from them. We've had no engagement from them. What took place from that point was an engagement with their property department regarding the premises of 186 Peckham High Street. We came with the knowledge that this building is a building that would be appropriate for an asset transfer. Asset transfer is a central government policy. It's quite an old one, but not many people know about it. So central government set a policy in place whereby local government should encourage community organisations to take up the asset of buildings, take up the ownership of buildings, and therefore improve their ability to deliver services. So we began our conversation with Southwark Council on the lines of we are interested in taking asset transfer for this property. They were skeptical and surprised, I think, that we knew about the policy that seems to be well hidden, and two, that we would step to that but manage our spaces, and this is the best way to do it. So we started a conversation around asset transfer of the premises 186 Peckham High Street. That conversation was challenging because they refused to engage with it even though they have a policy for it. So we discussed other options and we looked at various kinds of situation potentials. The council proposed that we should pay them rent, and this idea was based on levels and agreements that would be unfavourable to our organisation, which is clearly a new one. They modelled a lot of their arguments around people who were here before, the people who were one of the key associates who were here before, another organisation, and the arrangements that they had with them. Those arrangements were based on the fact that they were funded by local government, and in actual fact, when they came into use of the space, they were given money to cover the costs which local government would seek to take back from them. So there's a certain situation behind it, which as a new organisation, we would not be prepared to enter that, even though we would like to work with the local council in every way possible. It's not appropriate to undermine ourselves financially. So we entered our conversation like this, and still looking to ultimately settle with asset transfer, we explored various things. In the conversation, it became clear that the council really were not going to support us in the way that is the broader dynamic that community organisations need. It's not just a matter of speaking to a premises manager. You obviously need to have the councillors be supportive. You need to have officers in the council who deal with various departments that could potentially make referrals, provide infrastructure support. They need to be present, they need to be queued up to do it. And it became clear that the council were not taking that initiative, even though we'd gone to a great length to explain what it is we're doing and the credibility of our community to do this, the ability of our community to do it, the need for our community to do it. So in the process of us in this negotiation with the property department, it became clear that the other departments were not coming to order. And so we became a bit marginalised in our conversation, and it was clear that they wanted to, in my opinion, entrap our organisation in a contract that would be destined to fail. So we resisted that. They came to a point where they said that they felt this had broken down, and at that point they put the matter into a legal proceeding to have us removed from our space. We went to court. I'm giving a very brief summary. We went to court, at that time not able to pay the £5,000 plus to have legal representation, but with an idea that we're going to a court and that the person presiding over that will be able to listen to both sides of the situation and maybe mediate some way forward. When we got there, the judge, in my assessment, took the side of the other party, ignored key evidence, and showed bias. In fact, made many errors. This is my assessment. And because he witnessed that we did not have legal representation in terms of a formal lawyer, I think he took us for fool in a certain way. Anyway, he did that, and at the end of it, we, looking back on the case, were able to transcribe it and submit it back to them, showing 10 clear points of error that that judge made across a range of things, not just his attitude, but technical errors. For example, it is clear that the council do not have title for this building. It is clear that the council have never had anyone in any formal lease for this building. These things are a bit strange on the front end, but these are the facts. And because they're the facts, It means by common law, we have immediate right of possession. Now, this is English common law, and it means that our right of possession and ownership supersedes anyone else, unless someone can demonstrate that they have the ownership or the right. We've been to court now 3 times. Yesterday was the 3rd time, and in those 3 cases, no one has shown a title or any kind of formal leasing agreement. The second case, we went to court to appeal against the first one, because in the first one the judge said they should have possession, even though they couldn't demonstrate the ownership, even though they had made a number of errors and in their protocol had broken their own rules. The second case, we appealed against that, and that appeal was hindered by the fact that the judge, the first judge, had said that you have to get permission to appeal. That means that you can't just appeal straight off. You have to get permission to make an appeal, which is a hurdle that they put behind them to stop anyone from catching them when they make mistakes. So, the second judge was to decide whether we have permission. He looked at the case and said that the first judge was right. Without going into the detail, he said that if he was in the same position, he could also make these kind of judgments. And he made some speculation about the reason or the evidence that was presented to the first judge. Anyway, to me, he whitewashed it. He covered his first colleague, his junior judge, because he knew somewhere that he had made some errors, and if those errors are acknowledged, surely he would have to lose his job, in my opinion. By the way, this judge is one that has a history of doing these things. He is cited in the Sunday Times 2007 as having abused his powers. This is the first judge. So the fact that we brought a case saying that he had abused his powers again, it wasn't new to them. And just on the basis of that, just that alone, should have made them clear that we should at least have the right to appeal. Anyway, the second judge, he blocked it. So that means that their order for possession, which they are claiming, they could enforce it. Enforce it means that they will use force to get the building. And that means that they will bring in their security, their wardens, their police, their bailiff, and these kind of things, to move our children, families, community users from a space that we've been using for years. Somewhere in the process of this, they've tried to label our organisation and our members as trespassers. This is something I don't accept that. I'll never accept that. How can you be in trespass for somewhere you've been resident for over a decade? How does that work? So, anyway, they have ways that they work in terms of the law. They have what's known as slip rules, so that when they make mistakes, they can correct them with the slip rule. And they used all these things to whitewash the situation. Yesterday, we were due to be evicted from our premises. We went to the courts and made a special application to have this bailiff order blocked. We went and found the same judge we saw last time. So the second judge, we saw him again. And this time, he had to look at the case differently. The key reason why he looked at the case differently is because the community came in force. The community came in force and represented. Now, the first case is, to be fair, I had felt that going there with a clear reason, the matter can be done in a way that, if you like, minimizes the distress to the community. Because we're managing a centre, we want to build and project security and stability in the community. And we know that every time our community hears that a centre is under threat and there's problems here and problems there, it sends out ripples of despair. So we sought to manage it so we don't project those things into the space. Now, we come to the line, and yesterday many members, including some very special elders in the community, came to support our case. Elder Clarence Thompson, in particular Reverend Huey Andrews, these ones represented very well, alongside many members who use the centre as individuals, as families, even children were present, as organisations who in their own right have their members who use the centre. So we came in a force, and in the proceeding, ones were able to write a statement and give a personal statement to the judge, to the court, so that they could hear it. The legal representation for Southwark Council, she showed, ironically, I was glad, but she showed the level of contempt that the council really have for our work. And when I say our work, I have to put it in the context of African people, people of African heritage, working for well-being in our community. She showed the contempt in the way that she addressed the various people who spoke, trying to pull them down with legalese and completely ignoring the reality of the distress that will be caused by moving people out so abruptly. In the case yesterday, we were asking for an extension of time. I mean, my heart says that we should be resident in this building and that the council should engage in a process of supporting an organisation like this. At the very least, engage with it. We've had no engagement. Yesterday, the judge found himself in a position where he had no jurisdiction to give us the thing that we had requested. We were asking for extra time. He found himself in a situation where he couldn't give this extra time because of the law, some statutes and provisions that they work within in their legal systems. He made a point to express how unfortunate that was for him. He made a point to express that he recognized the passion and the commitment and the importance of the community work that was going on. It was clear to him that a great works was going on. And so this was the very first time that anyone in the judiciary or in the council system has acknowledged what is really happening or has been happening at the Abundance Centre, Peckham. Now, that is a great shame. We're 3 years down the road. We're on the edge of their desire to remove us from the building. And this is the first time that anyone can acknowledge it publicly. What a shame. So what we're seeking for now is really to begin the engagement. Irrespective of how things go, anytime we have a community centre, it's obvious we should have some engagement with all local stakeholders. So we're not in a position where we're wanting to argue on that matter with the council. And this is an excellent opportunity to engage with them. To be fair again, I have lost faith in the political system of local government. I have seen what I consider to be some levels of corruption and bias in local government. I've seen it directed more so at us. I've seen how our political figures are undermined by their peers, by their structures, by their own fear. I've seen these things, so I have lost faith in it. However, yesterday, my elders, they encouraged me, they inspired me to approach ones like Harriet Harman, who is our MP. So we are now in this 11th hour, opening an approach to her and others in the council to, for the first time, make a council engagement with the Abundance Centre, to engage and see what's really happening. Now, you have one of your judges, a senior judge, who has recognised what we're doing, and I think you should have a look yourself. It will be a great disaster if, by force, the council use bailiffs and security to remove children, women, elders, men from a community space that they've been resident in, doing good works in for over a decade. I should also add that we're not in any core funding with any agency like that. All of this work, which the judge also recognised, is 99% done on a voluntary basis. And that stands for our organisation as well as a number of our corporate members. So we're working in a way that is, although modest, it shows a great resolve. It shows a great resolve, it shows a great determination, and that should be respected. It has to be respected. Now, if the council system don't respect it, then certainly our community needs to deal with it and respect it, because that's the real power. Yes, you did. That is correct. When I say this building, I'm talking about 186 Peckham High Street. We're in an interesting situation now. We've been to the court, and in my attendance of the court yesterday, I came initially with the hat of Schools of Unified Learning. They have, as I've said, attacked our company and sought to undermine the company that represents the whole community. Schools of Unified Learning is a member of that company, and so we came now at the, if you like, the 11th hour to speak as a member and to bring the other members along our side to speak upon the fact of things. We have advanced to the court that in March there is a space for us to move to. This space, it's important to know about space. In our school we have some cultural ways of viewing space. We call it the Gazette, the region of space, land, air and mind that the warrior perceives as their responsibility. We have to be overstanding to all space and our agreements, and I do feel that come March, the springtime, the abundance will be greater. It's the nature of things. So we will move to a greater space. Already we're moving to a greater space by the way that we're interacting with each other, in terms of the way ones came together to build the strength, the unity of our resolve to be here, to use the space, to keep our families secure, our children well educated and so on like this. We're going to maintain that. There are several paths that I see. One, that the council and other stakeholders recognize the work and start to engage with us. That really is the beginning of something very special that will blossom in the springtime to a very great abundance, and that is what I really look forward to. Okay, well, as I said before, I have a bit of a history in terms of my experience with politics and politicians, and it leaves me feeling that the political system is not strong enough for me to put my energy in and have, by me putting my energy to it as a community worker, a senior community worker, it endorses it. And for me to endorse it, then other people will think, oh, that's the thing to do, perhaps. And I'm very mindful to do that. However, yesterday, my elders, they showed me some inspiration. And I know that these said elders, who I do respect, they are also members of the organisation you just mentioned. They are important players in that. And so it brings me thinking that perhaps there is something that such a thing can do. I feel the thing it can do is to support in this idea of the legal protection, the lawful protection of our communities. I've always felt that really the work you're talking about should sit with the AU, with the African Union. And that now, when you have a situation, for example, in the UK where children of African heritage have been underperforming relative to peers for so many decades, not years, decades, someone's supposed to represent that. I've done a lot of work in this. In a previous era, I have been the director for People Science, I still am, People Science Intelligence. And through this organisation, we've carried out national research on black community, Asian community, looking at education. And we've seen statistically and socially the issues of poor performance. However, each group thinks it's happening to them. So the Nigerian community will think that it is their children that are underperforming, and they will organise themselves together to fix it for their children. The Somali community will do the same thing. The Jamaican community, they organise for the Jamaican children to fix up in terms of them underperforming here. But it's happening globally, Pan-Africa. That is across the African heritage. And therefore, it needs organisations that work across the African heritage to address the issue. So, what you have just mentioned, I feel, is the remit of the African Union, and I trust that this organisation will have a relationship to the African Union. It should be that a community member appeals to this entity, international entity, and they turn around and say to the government of this country, look, these people are our citizens also, they are our members, they are of our kinship, and we have a responsibility for their well-being. So please ensure that they are not abused there. I hear that if a British citizen is in trouble anywhere in the world, England will come to their defense. I hear and I see that when there was an American lady trapped in Somalia, special forces were employed to go and get her out, bring her to safety. But we have children here, I know this for a fact. They are being disrespected in the education system. This is why I encourage independent learning, home education. I encourage families to take their children out of standard system schooling. Not in a casual, slack way, but in a mindful way. In a way where the parent is prepared to engage with curricular development, prepared to engage all the requirements of developing independent learning. I feel that the organisation you've mentioned can do work by supporting those processes, can help set infrastructure, help represent broadly so we can see the broad problems that are happening, not as individual members of the Pan-African community, but as a collective, so we can address collective issues and, you know, get benefit from the power of unity. I'd like to take this time as well to give a special thanks to all the people who have given their support. We have a very broad range of members in the community. People who have used the centre, people who are related to families who have used the centre and so on like this. And so many emails and texts that we've had of support, people coming down on the day. We thank you very much for this. Please continue to support, it's very important. This idea of the Abundance Centre is not something localized to one building. We need the centres on every corner. You see, we're growing up with many fast cash places, speedy cash places and bookies and off licenses on every corner. We need abundance centres on every corner. So our trust is much broader than the one building. It's not a conversation about one space. Please continue your support, and without a doubt we will have many abundance centres. This is a testing ground and we have to win and pass the test. So continue the work. You can contact our centre at information@abundancecentre.co.uk, info@abundancecentre.co.uk by email, or you can phone 020 8144 1720. These are contact numbers, contact details. Check out our website, you're very welcome, abundancecentre.co.uk. Join in, keep the support, and those who know other ones, maybe you're interested in the things that we're doing, the services, continue to make your application, come and visit, and get yourself involved. Hashima. Exiri Masagan Hashima Tawagi Asab. Creator be praised, respect the warrior idea.